Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to Christmas in Disneyland.
Christmas in Disneyland.
Welcome back to another gathering here at Off Harbor in Maine. I'm Joel Covey, and I'm joined by my close friends to reminisce over Disney theme park history and discuss the latest theme park happenings. Before we get to our special guest today, with me today is Beth.
Happy holidays, everyone.
Matt.
Hey, everyone.
And Derick.
Hey guys, Merry Christmas.
Everyone can make it when we have a special guest, of course. They're like, oh, yeah, we got to get on. So they actually made it. But anyways, today on episode 38, we're taking an in-depth look at one of the most cherished Disneyland parades. This parade has become a Disneyland institution for multiple generations, and the music is an earworm you can't ever get out of your head. We're talking about none other than the iconic Christmas Fantasy Parade.
Woo!
Yeah. And to help us discuss this beloved holiday favorite is an incredibly talented artist and Disneyland aficionado who seems to have done a little bit of everything, from Disneyland parade float driver, I believe, to helping design special events at the theme parks, to Wonderground gallery artist, to conceptualizing incredible holiday events in SoCal. We could take a whole podcast just talking about this guy's resume, but it's the incomparable Sam Carter.
Hey, how's it going, everybody?
Hey, welcome, Sam.
Welcome, Sam.
Thank you for having
Off
me.
Harbor.
Thank you so much. And you know what? Honestly, I adore Christmas fantasy, and I'm literally honored to even discuss it. I have to pinch myself because it is such a part of my career. So I'm glad I get the chance to yap about it.
That's awesome. And did I get everything correct there? I mean, that's just going off of just me reading your Twitter.
Sounded good.
That's what you meant.
Yeah, Twitter legend to add to that.
Oh, gosh. Infamous. Yeah. His Twitter is a crazy place. Luckily, I haven't gotten into too much trouble there yet.
It's pretty easy to dive into or to get in trouble.
Oh, I try to stay out of the bad stuff, and it's, believe me, I see it and it's there. But that's what, you know what, I'm glad you said that too, because it's nice to keep it positive, because there's so much crap in the world that it's nice to, like, you know what, let's talk about fun stuff. And that's actually why I'm all over Twitter nonstop. Yeah. It's just like I just enjoy this group of friends that we found, and people actually care about the stuff that's in my brain. So if I don't get it out of my brain, it's nice that people actually care. So I like that.
It's true. And it's such a slippery slope. It's so easy to find the bad side. But when you do...
Yeah, I get sucked in once in a while.
Yeah. But I've gained some great friends through Twitter as well. So there's some positivity for Twitter. Before we get into a little bit more about you, Sam, we do like to go around what we call our virtual tropical lanai, just to see what everyone is drinking tonight.
Is that a lanai like the Golden Girls lanai?
Sure, it could be the Golden
Okay,
Girls.
that's what I'm imagining.
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
Oh, thank
Maybe
God.
not what I was envisioning in my head. But
Thank you for being a friend.
I guess we'll change it up a little bit. Derick, do you have a drink tonight?
I do. I actually wanted to try it. I saw this at the grocery store and thought, oh, this looks interesting. It's by Luxardo, which happens to be the company that does our...
My favorite cherries.
Right? Your favorite cherries. Beth made me think of you. So it's a sour cherry gin and tonic. And really excited to try. I've never tried it before, but it looked good. The labeling looked good. And it's
Is it like
Luxardo.
Pre-mixed?
Yeah, it's a pre-mixed in a
Like
can.
in a can?
Yeah.
Ooh,
About to
I'll
pop
have to
it
go
open.
look for that. Tell me how it is.
Yeah, well, we'll see right now.
Was it like $30, like the cherries?
No, not bad. Not that bad. Hopefully it's as good though.
Sure.
I'll see.
Hey, when we were at the park the other day, though, I had regular maraschino cherries in my drink.
Wait, what drink was it? Was it a...
At Hearthstone?
Yeah, and I'm pretty
They
sure
look like
I'm pretty sure the menu
Luxardo?
said Luxardo cherries, but those were definitely just maraschino.
Oh,
They seem
that is-
dark,
Oh.
but we were in kind of dark setting, so
That's offensive to me.
I'm going to hope they just ran out and they're just, fine, we'll get some cherries in there. That's bad. I apologize. We should have just gone to our special guest first. Do you have anything?
Okay.
Are you drinking anything this evening?
Well, I had my traditional Jack and Coke Zero for dinner, and now I'm having just a Coke Zero, hold the Jack.
Perfect.
I got some work to do after this, so I probably shouldn't have another one.
Matt, I know you were saying you're pretty tired. Are you sticking with water this evening?
Yeah, so I went to dinner earlier with some friends. We did some Christmas presents, had a couple drinks at dinner, and now I'm just sticking to water. To be honest, I
Sometimes it's
thought
needed.
about making a drink because I've never been to a Total Wine before, but I finally went the other day.
Oh,
Mm.
and
they're
found,
awesome.
I've always been a Bevmo person, but I think I've changed now because Total Wine was awesome. but I was actually able to find that Downton Abbey gin
Oh, they have it there?
when I went. So of course I bought it. So maybe that'll be for next episode.
Ooh, I guess I don't need to order it online anymore. That's good to know. Nice. How about you, Beth?
Well, first of all, let me just say I'm glad to hear everyone drinking responsibly and taking taking into account their
We're
evenings.
just
before
catching
they
up to
drink.
you guys.
Yeah. So I don't know what the hell this is. Okay, my birthday was last week. And my daughter got me this cup with a bee on it. And then she also picked me out a bottle of vodka because she liked the colors on the bottle. And so it's blue raspberry vodka and then sparkling water. And then I thought, you know what? It's not sweet enough. So I put a scoop of vanilla ice cream in it. I don't know what it is,
Oh, I love it.
Wow, you
but it's
float.
really good.
Are you high?
Wow.
Okay,
No.
Life.
we got to do it. We
Yeah.
always do it. What's the name of it, Beth?
This is a creamy raspberry cooler.
Oh, we'll take it. That works.
Okay.
It's funny. She got you a cup with a B on it too, because I got you one too, but it doesn't stand for
It
Beth.
doesn't mean Beth.
Awesome. Well, I sound like a broken record when I'm talking about my drinks around the holidays because I always do an eggnog drink. And sure enough, I did another eggnog drink today, but I was a little tired. Yeah. So I did do my espresso drink with some steamed or frothed eggnog.
Wow.
Threw in some bourbon in my little holiday cup with like a penguin on it. I have
Aw,
no idea why we
cute.
have this, but I love it. It's big. But it's excellent and great for the holidays coming up here. 'Tis the season. And with that, everybody, cheers.
Cheers, guys.
Episode 38.
Oh, that's pretty good.
Oh, that's good
Was
water.
it good?
Refreshing.
Yeah.
So, Sam, I mean, I know we want to get into Christmas Fantasy Parade, and we're excited to talk about it, but would you mind, and you've done, I feel like, the podcast circuit. You've been on a lot of podcasts.
I have.
Yeah.
Well, I think I've perfected making it very quick. And if people have heard me yap about it before, then I'll try to make it like short and sweet. You know, it all starts in 1995 when I finally got hired as a float driver in the parade department at Disneyland. And I had some friends in high school that were in the parade, and I always thought, well, that's cool. I always try to watch the parade. I was actually one of the only ones in my friend who actually wanted to watch Electrical Parade. I wanted to see, you know, the World According to Goofy Parade. I was kind of raised as a kid watching this stuff. In fact, my uncle, who kind of got me into this, he always took me and my cousin to Disneyland when we were kids, and he would have us sit in town square, and he would sit across from us during the parade. And when the parade goes by, he would videotape us as the floats go by.
Oh.
So smart.
So
Love
cool.
that.
And I'm like,
Yeah.
and I'm really ticked off that I haven't done that with my kids yet. I'm going to force myself. Maybe with Magic Happens, I'll do that. So yeah, I just, you know, always grew up watching that stuff. And my friends from high school were in Lion King, and they're like, why don't you go to an audition? And I was actually kind of traumatized by auditions for parades because when I was a kid, I went and auditioned to be in Very Merry Christmas Parade. Because if you remember, they had children performers.
Yes. I didn't
Like
know
the-
you auditioned for that
Oh, I got
as a
cut
child.
fast. I got cut really fast. But I'll circle back to that. But like, so yeah, they had Lost Boys were kids, and Mowgli was a little kid, and the elves were all children. Turns out most of those kid actors were relatives or children of actually parade performers and float drivers. So it was like a family type thing. But I got the job as a float driver in Electrical Parade and Lion King Parade. So what a cool way to start it. But I remember Lion King was just such an epic show. And like that was the kind of parade where people would cry when they watch it. Like Circle of Life means a lot to a lot of people, especially in the early 90s, well, mid 90s when it first came out. So I had a blast, and I felt like, okay, this is home. I'm glad I'm working here. And I've always loved Disneyland. And I knew it eventually as a matter of time before I worked there. But since the very beginning, I wanted to be in the art department. So long story short, it took 10 years to get into the art department. 10 years of like bugging people and like trying to be, you know, persistent, but not annoying, and just kind of making sure everyone knows, hey, you know, I'm an artist, right? You know, I could do this stuff. I designed a parade. You want to see it? And blah, blah, blah. So anyway, we worked, you know, every parade in the 90s. So Lion King and Electrical Parade. And then, yes, I opened Light Magic, closed Light Magic. We did Mulan, Hercules Parade, Mulan. There was supposed to be a Tarzan parade. It never happened, though. but then Parade of Stars. And then the most exciting thing was we're opening the second gate. We're opening up Eureka over at California Adventure.
Yes.
And the best thing about that,
Eureka fans here.
same here. So good. We got to rehearse that in the daytime. And that was super rare because usually we rehearse in the middle of the night. But we actually got to, when they first built the park, they just poured the cement for the entire parade route or the performance corridor. They're making a big distinct difference. This is not a parade route, performance corridor. Anyway, the first time we took the floats out, I got to pull the carpet off. Like me and a bunch of guys, we actually rolled carpet offs to drive the floats out for the first time in a brand new park. It was just surreal.
Awesome.
Wow.
And then people were watching it through the front gate because there's no wall up, and that Eureka music was blasting, and people were like, "What is this?" And so Eureka, then Block Party, and I was actually in charge of the drivers when we mounted Block Party. So I felt like I came a long way. I was driving the floats and actually having some fun time performing as a character in some of the things, because some of the characters drive the floats. And then this whole time, every Christmas I would do Christmas Parade. And so being that I started in '95, that was the first year of Christmas Fantasy, and I was a little bit bummed because I loved Very Merry Christmas Parade. I loved that it was so long, and they had the different units for each character and each movie. You know, if you've seen old videos, it has like just there's a Jungle Book unit, and then a whole Alice in Wonderland unit. Like that's how it was. And then the second half of the parade was basically Christmas Fantasy floats. And I was actually disappointed that, like, nice luck, I finally get with the Christmas Parade and it's different. But I didn't realize how special that was was the very first Christmas Fantasy. And I grew up watching Mickey's Christmas Carol. Like, to me, nothing was more Christmas than watching that. And even like that theme song is just hauntingly Christmas to me. And I just love that finale unit was a Mickey's Christmas Carol unit, which we talk about that a lot on Twitter. Like, look at this picture. It's Ghost Goofy. How cool is this? And if you notice last year, they did make brand new costumes for the Mickey's Christmas Carol, where they finally had it. You had to pay to go to that after party for it. But I was hoping that maybe one of these years they'll bring it back, but we'll see.
That'd be cool.
But yeah, that's the long version. I know I said it would be short, but that was the long version of my parade time, where I worked my way up to be, it's called Parade 2. It's in charge of the drivers for Block Party Bash. But working Block Party Bash, I made really good friends with a lot of the art directors, like Brad Kay, and Marilyn Magnus was a designer for that show director for that parade. And Marilyn is amazing. She actually went back and she was a show director for the Blast of the Past Hop. And she was actually one of the original Hoopty-Doo review performers. It's just the history of these people that worked there that put up until the 2000s, they're still putting on these shows. So anyway, I kind of like did my usual, like, hey, I'm an artist. You want to see my drawings? And but to get their attention, I actually convinced my manager to allow me to paint a mural in our parade building. That was every parade that the park has ever had. It took me 2 years, and I painted starting from Electrical Parade in '72 and ending with Electrical Parade when it came back to DCA. And then later I did another one for the 50th. So that was around the time of Block Party Bash, and that kind of put me on the radar. Like, hey, there's a parade guy that just painted this mural that's like 100 feet long. Anyway, I because of that and because of knowing Marilyn, she let me kind of do a pitch where I proposed a brand new light parade called Disney's Light Odyssey. It was for California Adventure, and it was basically like a new electrical parade that revolved around every Disney movie that takes place around the ocean. And I've posted a lot of art about that. You might have seen that. Obviously, they didn't build that parade. But a few months later, there was an opening for an art director, and I got it. So then for 7 years, I was an art director in entertainment, and just like you said, did events. Like I art directed Miley Cyrus's Sweet 16 birthday party, like weird, awesome stuff.
That's so cool.
Like big things, small things. But then, so I actually left the company in 2012 to go be creative director at USC for their design department. But I had that itch to do artwork, and I made a lot of contacts working for 17 years at the park. So that's when I actually started doing Wonderground Gallery art. And then from the Wonderground Gallery art, that led to a trip to the Epcot Festival of the Arts. And around that same time, I started designing popcorn buckets and doing events and whatnot. So it's been a lot of stuff. That's why it seems like I'm all over the place, because you meet a lot of people and then you do a lot of gigs like that.
Yeah, you've done some really great things in the parks that I've really enjoyed, and when I found out after the fact, like that was Sam. Like,
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah,
It trips me out.
even from the
Especially still it's still there.
I've talked about it before on the podcast. I had a small stint where I worked at Disneyland and attractions, and our costuming area was in the entertainment building back there, and so I would always see those. At one time, I just I'm going to venture down the other side of the hallway, and I saw all those paintings, and I thought that was just the coolest thing. And then,
I'm glad you got to see it.
I know it's gone now because of Mickey Minnie's Runaway Railway. It's always going to be hard for me to say, but
yeah, same here.
But I think so many people will remember that forever because it was such a cool thing that existed back there. But two things I got to bring up. You know what? Actually, three things. One, season speedings. I think is worth mentioning. You want to explain that one real quick?
Sure. Okay. When I was working in creative entertainment, I worked closely with Dave Crancy's team, and he was in charge at the time of all the holiday stuff, Christmas and Halloween and all that. And he's now a WDI guy. But he was saying how it was about a year before Cars Land and Buena Vista Street was opening, and he was already planning the Christmas stuff. So that's how I got to work on, I helped design the Buena Vista Street Christmas tree, and then there's some stuff for Cars Land. And I was stoked because I was definitely a DCA fanboy. I'm like, yeah, I know it sucks, but it's going to be good, right?
You're in good company.
It's going to be amazing. We all knew it needed a lot of help, especially because for a few of us who got to go to Disney Sea, we were like, we know there's a big difference here.
And it opened the same year.
Yeah, so depressing. But we still loved it because it meant there's a second gate. We loved what it meant. And then we know it was going to be way better later. And
well, we got to see it grow. We got to see it get prettier every year.
We really did.
So we saw it in
and
the
it's just funny. It cost more to fix it than it did to build it. If you put it in those terms.
Yeah.
And we knew that that's the money that they were spending on it. So we were very excited about Cars Land. But to answer your question, for season speedings, there's that amazing iconic billboard in the front. And Dave asked me hey, what do you think a Christmas version of this would look like an overlay to this? And I'm like, oh my gosh, let me think about that. So I got the original file, which was ginormous. And I actually got to draw on the original file, and I changed the colors and I added snow. And I'm like, I made those. They were all excited about the snowflakes are going to be made of wrenches. It's going to be really cool. I'm like, great, I love it. So we were putting that together, and then it got really crazy where I'm like, we need a Santa car. We need something and Santa and a reindeers. What does that look like? And I was sketching out what I thought it would be like. And I had to send stuff through approval to Pixar. So I had an amazing contact of a Pixar, and her name is Donna. And she would go hey, I think John's working on something about that. And I'm like, John? Yeah, John Lasseter. He's working on something. Let me talk to him. I'm like, what? Anyway,
gosh.
She sends me an email with a scanned thing, and then because they were working on a book about Santa and Christmas. And there's a sketch from John saying, this is what the Santa car is going to look like in this world. I'm like, well, that's it. That's what I wanted to do. So my mind's blown. I'm like, I can't believe that just happened. But then we don't really talk about it anymore, of course. But the fact that happened was pretty cool at the time.
Yeah.
At the time, that was really cool. And then so I'm making this billboard, and I'm like, we need a Merry Christmas. How would you say Happy Holidays in the world of cars? And I'm like, oh, I don't know. And I'm like, oh, I know it needs to be in this top right corner, and I know it needs, and I really like this font. And how about placeholder? This sounds stupid. Season speeding. And I just kind of chuckle and I move it on. I'm like, placeholder. And 12 years later, every Christmas, it still goes up.
Yeah.
And I laugh. I'm
Classic.
like, it's on merchandise. And even I tripped out when I was taking my kids on Mater's, and Mater's like, season speedings. I'm like, holy cow.
So cool.
Crazy. So it's amazing. I think it's cool when a creative or an artist does something, and because I'm not a writer, but it was just a placeholder, but I'm glad it stuck. So
yeah,
season speedings, everybody.
So cool. That's so cool. And then you already mentioned the other thing, the Christmas tree. You've talked about this a ton too. Yeah. I just think we love Buena Vista Street, but the Christmas tree fits it so well. And then using those historic, not retro, but just the actual design of old.
I cannot believe that this is part of the Walt's holiday tour. So let me tell you why I love Buena Vista Street. It is a Walt Disneyland. We have Disneyland, but the entrance to California Adventure is a land about Walt Disney. And I've gone on at great lengths talking about why Carthay is so special. And just for posterity, I'll document it here again. So if that night at the Snow White premiere didn't go well, none of this would be here. Right? That's a really crucial moment in the Walt Disney Company.
Yeah.
And I think for that reason alone, it's just let Carthay be the icon and maybe just put a plaque. And, there's a plaque, but like, don't make it the Ferris wheel. Don't make it Guardians of the Galaxy. Like, can you just have this be the actual icon of the park? And sometimes they do, so I like that. But so the Christmas tree ornaments, when I was working with Dave Crancy again on that, he actually found that back in the day, Walt licensed these Christmas lights. And what was so mind-blowing and special to me about that was because I hand drew them as best to my ability off this grainy photo of what the artwork looked like, because it's the pie-eyed Mickey and Clarabelle and even like Morty and the two nephews that you never see, like they were on there. We got to do all the artwork for that, and then we made it. And I'm like, what was so special was I hope that there's a living great grandma around who gets dragged to California Adventure and sees these bell ornaments. And I want it to be like Vigo from Ratatouille when it just gets flashed back to like being a kid. Going, oh my God, I had those. I'll never know if that actually happened. But if it did, I'm going to be a happy camper because that's what's so special about it.
I'm
And
sure
it's
there's
perfect
people
for a
going
Walt
there that have had those ornaments, or at least hand-me-downs.
I hope so.
Yeah.
And if you just search for like Walt Disney Christmas lights 1930s, it'll pop up on eBay, some crazy price. But yeah, it's really, really cool.
That's awesome. And then, the other item, it's not really, I think it's just something more that I think you would appreciate. And I had to tell you, I think it was last night. So I've talked about this on Twitter myself, about this Japanese vlogger, Yamato style, right? So he does all these, he just walks around Tokyo Disneyland, and that's all he does. There's no talking. He walks through.
I want to do that.
Yeah. But he videotapes it, and he has a great edit, but he just goes through Tokyo Disneyland and Disney Sea, and he writes in Japanese characters, so I don't know what he's saying, but he's giving updates too, but there's no voices, so it's very relaxing. And there's just like the sounds of the park. But what's nice is he just went to Florida, and it seems like their first time. I'm assuming, I can't read, what they're writing, but it's their first time to Disney World. And, they're going through, they're all excited. They get to Magic Kingdom, and then they get their mugs. And I thought it was just so cool because they're showing their 50th anniversary mugs.
It was that one?
And it was that
they're
one.
right behind me.
There you go.
There it is.
And it's just like, it's so weird. I'm like, and so of course I'm telling my wife, I'm like, see that? The guy that's going to be on the podcast tomorrow did that.
Oh, I love it.
So
It's
I
so
thought that was
cool.
just cool.
I mean, it actually trips me out because this is like a pandemic project for me. So drawing this was when the world was in a crazy place, right? And I pride myself in my composition, especially like long panorama ones, like murals. I think of it like that way.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just so crazy working on this and having my kids look at my Cintiq while I'm drawing it, and knowing it's during a pandemic, we're working from home, and it was just weird to work from home. Like, it's normal now, but at the time it was crazy. But then after the pandemic, when I got to take my mom to Disney World, she hasn't been there since opening year.
Oh, wow.
She drove with her friend when it opened. And then she's never been back. And I've been begging her my whole life, take me. And so now I got to take her. So 50 years later, she went back. And like, I refused to buy any of these because I'm like, I wish they'd give me one for free. I drew it, but they don't. So my mom knew I was stubborn. I wasn't going to buy it. So during fireworks, my mom bought me one, which was I thought pretty cool.
That's so sweet.
It was awesome. And it was crazy. Like, can you imagine not going to a place for 50 years? And she saw the contemporary. She's like, I feel like I was here yesterday. That's insane.
Wow.
That's crazy.
Yeah, really crazy.
And then here's her son has his art there. How cool.
And then the most fun part was when my son Sammy was like, Dad, every stroller has your art hanging on it.
Oh.
It was so cool.
So
Like, he was
cool.
like tripping out. He's like, I saw you draw that. That's cool. He even went to one popcorn cast member going, my dad drew that.
Oh, that's cool.
And then the cast member was like, no, he didn't. And he's like, yeah, he did. He's 6. He's like, yeah, he did. And the cast member's like, Mickey Mouse drew it. And he's like, oh, okay.
All right.
But I thought it was so
Hey, is
cool
my
for him
dad
to
Mickey
see
Mouse?
artwork. Yeah, whether it's the Wonderground Gallery or at Festival of the Arts, he was calling Epcot my art show. I'm like, oh, I love that you're
That's
doing that.
incredible.
It's so neat, right? Little things like that.
That's surreal.
It's exciting. But I haven't had any new artwork for a while yet at Wonderground, and I have one of the Hercules pieces like behind me too. But hopefully I'll get to do that someday. I really love the Festival of the Arts. It was fun. I was there for 2 weeks signing with masks on. It was during the first one with the mask, and it was I'm like, why am I flying across the country during a pandemic to meet people like face to face, sign autographs? But
I'm sure you'll get back, no doubt. So
I hope
that's all very exciting. And there's one thing that I had to bring up before we get to Christmas Fantasy about the recent announcement. It's been a couple weeks now. They kind of announced it right before it was to reopen, but I think this kind of coincides with some of the stuff you've done for it. But with the Queen Mary opening back up, at least for tours
pretty
right now,
special place.
And it's really cool. We've talked about this previously in the podcast, really towards the beginning. Dark Harbor is a big, Matt and I really love that event. And it's one of my favorite haunts, and I was very sad. Yeah. And
the team behind that, Steve and Charity, are rock stars. And they did 10 years of Dark Harbor, which was like beyond cool. It felt Disney level quality, and they all tied to the theme of the ship. Mm-hmm. They had a mascot for each maze that would kind of mingle around. It was just too fun.
Yeah. When they started adding bars into the mazes, that's when I was 100% on board.
Did you go to the one it was inside the hull of the ship? It's
so we did two of them.
The nightmare.
We did that one, and we also did the one that was it was like outside. I think it was supposed to be like a shipwreck kind of like thing. It was like in a dome. We did that one too.
Oh, yeah,
it was pretty cool.
Yeah. Where it's like this. Yeah, I remember the shipwreck with that projection mapping. I still come across those coins that mean you could get into the bar, and I'm like, oh, how sad I can't use these to get.
That was so good
to buy a $20 crappy drink. But
it wasn't about the drink. It was, and I just love that like in order to get the medallion, you had to like interact with.
Yeah, it was really cool. That was next
so
level.
Cool.
Well, what's neat about the Dark Harbor is I got to set up my first Christmas while that was going on. So I got to kind of explore, and a lot of the assets that they had for Dark Harbor were owned by the ship. So they were telling me like, hey, use whatever you can from Dark Harbor. So I'm like walking around Dark Harbor during the daytime looking at assets. Like, how do I make this jolly? Like, there's blood all over it. I guess if I turn it around, maybe I could use it. But
a couple green splatters, you're good to go.
Yeah, exactly. It seems jolly. But yeah, this ship's amazing. I'm glad it's back.
Yeah, and that Long Beach, now it's owned by the city of Long Beach, I believe, right? And at least it looks like they're looking to do what's right and what's needed for the ship. So it's just nice that it's getting the love that it deserves.
I think we're lucky that it costs almost as much to get rid of it that it does to save it.
Yeah,
we're lucky, because if it was cheap to get rid of, I think it'd be at the bottom of the ocean somehow.
I think so too.
Which is so sad to think about, because the history of that ship. I don't know if you saw me tweet like a couple weeks ago, but when I was on the ship decorating it, we put like 40 Christmas trees on it, like one in every ballroom. And I heard stories of this old man, like old guy that was walking around, and he was looking under these stairs on the main promenade. And my friend who told me the story asked him like, hey, are you okay? And he's like, oh yeah, I haven't been here since I took the ship back from World War II, took her home.
Oh my God.
And this is where I slept.
No way.
He's pointing under the stairs. Yeah, stuff like that. Like, this has to be preserved.
Yeah.
This is ridiculous. Like, really special stuff like that.
I'm just really hoping that they take the time and actually do something really good with a lot of this stuff, because that whole outside area too was just not looking great.
It was dilapidated.
Yeah.
I don't want to say Elon Musk, but an Elon Musk type with deep pockets. I wish they would just invest a ridiculous amount of money and build something appropriate next to the ship, and then have something really cool to connect it to, like the harbor. Shoreline Village is pretty cool too, and the aquarium's right there. Even if it's like a Skyliner or just something, like connect the ship with that little trafficy area of the Pike. It needs that. And it really should be like a boutique hotel and more luxury, fix it up where you can, but there's no room for like a real spa and all that stuff. You could actually build a tower next to it with all those amenities.
Sure. Why not?
And work that into like a new boardwalk area. It'd be really, really cool. Hopefully someday. I don't know, man. I'm just glad. Isn't it funny? Like, we're just glad it's open.
Yeah.
And now we're like,
what exactly are they doing
$20
right now? Is it just like tours? That's what I heard that they're opening to do.
And you know what? What's funny is during the whole pandemic, I still had the keys to the ship. It's just like, I wonder if this key still works. So I did Christmas for a few years where I was in charge of, I was like basically a creative director for all the different Christmas offerings. And then I also did the marketing for it. So the billboards that you saw for it were the same thing. It all kind of came from an attraction poster that I made of the ship, that I made that like my guiding light. Anything with this ship during Christmas has to feel like it's part of this. And I treated it like a attraction poster in the tunnel at Disneyland. And I was pretending as if they built Port Disney still. I was right next to it. I'm trying to make it feel like that weight.
Yeah.
Which is, it's all in my head, but it was great too, because there was trust there. They actually listened to me when I'm like, okay, these aren't your guests today. They're your passengers. Like, we are going to the North Pole. I want kids to be showing up and like believing that the ship left. And then when they got back, it just docked. It was really cool. Like, I got really deep about it, but I'm like, here's their ticket to go to the North Pole and blah, blah, blah. And it was so much fun. But so that while the pandemic was happening, they were still shooting movies on it. I think there was a I Love Lucy movie that was filmed in the ballroom. So they were doing a lot of film shoots, but it just wasn't open as a hotel or event space. And now I think it's just tours.
Right.
And eventually the hotel hopefully will come back. And then you can do events in the ballrooms, and hopefully they call me back and I can do Christmas again over there. That's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah, we're hoping the same thing.
Awesome.
Well, no, I appreciate you, going over all that stuff. I know you've talked about it a lot, and I just think our listeners would appreciate some of that stuff you've done. So I really appreciate that.
Thanks.
I think now we'll head back to Disneyland, back to Main Street, USA, and we'll go into the Christmas Fantasy Parade.
This is very unusual weather for Southern California. In fact, it's impossible. But since Disneyland is the Magic Kingdom, we thought we'd use some of that magic to create a traditional Christmas atmosphere.
Hello, Walt.
Well, hi, Santa. Is everything ready for our big Christmas parade?
Everything but the weather. Yeah? Personally, I feel right at home in this snow, but it's not so good for a parade.
Well, after all, it is your day, Santa, so make the most of it, I got 365.
I see what you mean, Walt. But since I'm going to be in that parade, I'd better get ready.
So before we get in the breakdown of the parade, I think it's crazy. It's something about Christmas Fantasy Parade. I guess I never really looked at the history of it or really knew much about the floats. And thankfully, Sam, you've been educating a lot of people on, how these floats have been around for a long time.
They're old.
I had no idea
very old. They're
how
ancient.
old these are.
Well, every once in a while you'll see like a tow vehicle behind Santa's float. That's because these wheels could fall off. I'm not kidding. Some of the floats
or Santa.
Ooh, I saw that. I'm glad he was okay. Yeah, that was crazy. And that was one of the new floats too. Yeah. But some of the floats, they go back to Very Merry Christmas Parade, which is a long time ago. Mm-hmm. And then some of those floats even go back past Very Merry Christmas Parade to Fantasy on Parade, which goes back to Walt's era.
That's crazy.
It's just crazy. So the park's always had some sort of Christmas parade. And if you look at really old pictures, there's a lot of really cool blogs out there that have photos of stuff back in the day. But you can see the old parade route actually went through Frontierland in front of Golden Horseshoe, and it connected out that way. And the parade gate went through the Firehouse Gate, not Egg House Gate. Mm-hmm. So that's old school, right? And I think the Christmas parade had like an international type theme. I've seen really rare pictures of like these tractor trailer tugs pulling like 50 kids sitting on the thing. I'm like, what is this parade? But then they kind of got more elevated, and they did the Fantasy on Parade, which actually had more of the characters. And that's what a lot of like the 10, I think it's the 10th anniversary special that you can see on Disney Plus, where it's like Walt at Disneyland or something. I forget the name of it. But they show footage of it where they start introducing like units for each movie. then it got a little bit more refined, and it became Very Merry Christmas Parade, I think in the late 70s or early 80s. And that's when it got really big. And if you think about it, there was no Fantasmic yet. There was no big spectacular. These parades were the spectaculars. You know, some of the casts had 400 people in them. And, you know, a parade today might have, I don't know, 80. So they were really, really big. They could take an hour to go by, maybe even more.
Oh, wow.
And this is how long Very Merry Christmas Parade was. So if they were short drivers for the day, the parade would step off at Small World, do the whole parade, which is, for the most part, from what I remember, 24 minutes gate to gate as a driver. And the halfway point is 12 minutes exactly at the hub, the crosswalk right there for Tomorrowland. And then it gets in the gate at Egg House Gate. That driver could be shuttled around all the way backstage and drive one of the last few floats.
No way.
They haven't even gone out yet. They're still parked next to Small World. That's how long this thing was.
Oh my gosh.
And I think now the parade is all, I think that the opening float is reaching Town Square by the time Santa comes out. So it's a lot smaller, but that's okay. It's still good.
And I understand, you know, how these things have kind of gotten smaller over time, and even our attention spans have shortened. So I get some of it. I think it was 1987 when the Very Merry Christmas Parade actually started, and just before that, you had the Christmas version of Fantasy on Parade.
Right.
The good thing here, and I was going to talk about this at the beginning, but I was saving that onto the end. But this is a good point to just bring up. For researching for this episode, I could find all the videos I needed on Sam Carter's YouTube channel. So
everything you could possibly need.
That's my biggest pandemic project. Was I had this big Tupperware thing of old tapes. I'm like, well, the industry's dead. I got to do something. I got to wipe off the dust off these tapes and make some magic. I'm sure someone wants to see this stuff. It's just crazy. The stuff I found is insane, and I wish I could post everything I found, because especially in the early my early days of being in the parade department, I have a lot of backstage video of us getting ready and stuff. I'm like, this is so cool to see. I just can't post it. Dang it.
Online.
Yeah, it'd be really cool.
Yeah, I mean, there's 77 videos alone just on your folder for the parades and shows.
Just for Disneyland.
Yeah. And so, you know, he has the inaugural 1995 Christmas Fantasy Parade video on there, and it goes through the years. He has different ones. But then, you also have the Fantasy and Parade, the Christmas versions, and then there's the Very Merry Christmas Parade. And I was looking at these, and this is where I got stunned when I was like, wait, that's the exact same float. They haven't even changed it.
Still in operation.
And so
the Candy House right now, I think, is it's identical. It's just crazy.
Yeah, and I think I put on here the famous Princess float with the spires. That's still utilized, but not in the Christmas Fantasy Parade. Right, I think it's still on site.
The long, is that the Sleeping Beauty one? The castle float, the Crystal Castle one?
Yes.
Florida used that a lot longer than we did. I think ours might have just fallen apart because it was so old. But Florida used theirs. It's still featured every once in a while. I think they still use it.
It is, because when I went in May of 2021, it was before they started doing fireworks and parades and stuff again. The couples on there, right? Yeah, I was sitting in Country Bear Jamboree, and all of a sudden I hear music outside, so I walk out there, and it's going down the parade route, and I was like, I swear I've seen this float before.
There is a handful of floats that Florida and Disneyland had duplicates of. Like the Candy House would be one too, where they had, but ours had an extension put on it where you could have like a little platform, and in the front, every character is rotated through there. It's been Mad Hatter and Alice. It's been Clarabelle and Daisy. It's been Max and Goofy. It's been Goofy and Pluto. It's crazy how that's what's kind of neat about this parade. It's always a little bit different. And when you go back and look at the different versions of it, you can see, okay, what floats were cut, what floats were were made new, what characters were featured. Like 1995, it was still all about Roger Rabbit. So Roger Rabbit's very featured in it. In the late 90s, it was very cool. If you notice by the toy block floats that they had, every year there's a new movie, they would introduce a new couple to this theme. So where they had Buzz and Woody was brand new. In fact, I remember for 1995, there was a pre-parade before Christmas Fantasy that was Toy Story. It came out during Christmas. So Toy Story was still just in the theaters. And there was a pre-parade for that where they actually had Green Army Men. And to be honest, it's the only time I've actually enjoyed seeing Green Army Men. I don't care for them. I just, they're overused.
It is everywhere.
Yeah. It's not unique anymore. And it's because when they were being used for this, they actually had the green pads on their feet, like the lily pads with their feet connected. That's what made those characters cool. They were, these poor guys had to like hop down, like on a snowboard, basically hop down route. I'm like, I like that. And ever since they got rid of those, I'm like, nah, it's not impressed. They don't have the
it's not the
pads
same.
on. No, it's not as cool.
Not accurate.
But it's amazing to think that's how long it's been. Like Toy Story has been around forever. But they had Hercules and Meg walking around with gifts. They had Mulan and Mushu, like all those awesome 90 movies. I think they had Esmeralda and Clopan, Buzz and Woody I mentioned. But it's cool. I love that unit. And I was like, man, they're going to add these forever. And then they just cut that unit. We don't need all that. It'll get out of hand.
Looking at that first year, it's so funny because it basically starts off with Sebastian. And it's a walk-around character of Sebastian.
Because Ariel's up on the toy block.
Yes. I just thought that
very rare. Like, what, Sebastian? What is going on?
And it makes sense because it's still 3 year, or I guess it's almost 6 years at that point, but it's still relatively
pretty new.
Yeah. So I get it, but it's just funny. That's something different.
It is funny too, actually, how you mentioned like this was all pre-Toy Story, because I actually distinctly noticed that, like, looking at the original year that it debuted, the parade, that it was all like original old school toys, like no
it was generic.
It was
a Raggedy Ann and Andy. It was all like license free.
Exactly.
They didn't have all those new classic characters yet, really, and they had those existing characters from old shows too.
What I really like, just like the finale float before with the Christmas Carol or Mickey's Christmas Carol, it just felt very classic and traditional. And then at the beginning there, and with all those characters, there's so many, with being, even if they were not licensed, it's still a very traditional feeling, and it felt it had a different charm to it than maybe. I mean, it's still great today, but it
felt mom and pops.
Yeah,
it didn't feel like this huge corporation owned it. Knott's Berry Farm has a show right now called Home for the Holidays, and there's a scene that has like generic Raggedy Ann and Andy and Nutcracker and Ballerina, and I'm like, this is totally old school Disneyland right here. Like, this is exactly what they did back then.
That's the one on the cool Calico stage, right?
Yep. Yeah, that was a good one. It
was good.
Very cheesy, but in a good way. It's like I imagine what they would have at Dollywood. It's something just very like old school, cheesy, but in a good way.
Something that I noticed that I brought up to you, Sam, was I didn't realize Mickey and Minnie and this went on for a long time, so that's on me because they were on there for a long time. But I didn't realize Mickey and Minnie were just taken out on a carriage before. They weren't on any float, and I'm like, it's kind of
with
crazy.
Live horses.
Yeah,
yeah. Well, that's the thing is the Christmas Fantasy Parade most of the parades always had Circle D involved, and you could have some horses in the parade. I mean, Mulan had 5 humongous black horses that pulled the carriage at the end. There's a hunchback cavalcade where Frollo rode one of those big black horses. Really intimidating looking down the parade route. But yeah, they had horses in it. They actually had live musicians in it. They had live carolers in it. They had
I saw
live
that. That was
kids
really cool.
in it.
And the kid live. It's a good thing they were dead.
They're all alive. But like just the fact that they had that Dickens float with the Mickey's Christmas Carol characters on it, but there's probably 12 carolers on it. And here's my favorite part about that is one of those carolers I was friends with, Eden Espinoza, was a caroler in that parade, and she went on to become Elphaba in Wicked. So awesome.
Wow.
That's really cool.
Didn't she also sing the song for Magical?
Yes, she did. That's amazing. Yeah, she rocked that. And she played Pocahontas in Animazement for that really beautiful trio of Pocahontas, Hercules, and Quasi.
That's like the best combination. I love that so much. I get chills every time I hear it. Yeah.
Yeah, she nails it. So
that
was so cool.
They need to bring Animazement back, or just something, just the same idea of what Animazement was. I think it would work so well today.
You know what's weird? At the time, I don't think it got the love it deserved. Like, I always wanted to see it, but I thought people were like, oh, Animazement, I don't know. I'm like, dude, have you seen the trio? And at the time, those movies were not box office hits.
Yeah.
So it was almost like they're the underdogs, and the underdogs were just
killing it,
stealing the show, which was like really cool. And I felt like that's where a lot of the passion came from, because obviously the music from Herc is great, and I like the song from Pocahontas, but then Out There, Hunchback soundtrack's amazing. And those movies were not well received. Like I felt like it was like, oh, I'm not going to go watch Herc. And later, like, obviously I love Hercules. It's amazing. Like, that music's amazing. So I'm like, I'm glad now it finally gets the love. Even honestly, I think people were even kind of tired of Lion King at the time. I remember when that was ending, they were kind of, even some of the parade performers.
Matt's raising his hand because he's not.
I gotta go work Lion King. No, wait, what?
Yeah,
I'm not a fan.
We've already given him hell for it.
Wait, the parade or the movie?
The movie.
Are you talking about the CGI one or the animation one?
Both.
Let him have it, Sam.
Oh, man. I don't understand. Let's do a whole deep dive on that, ladies.
That's called therapy.
Yeah.
Well, you need that too.
Hey, but you know what? I mean, because I grew up in that generation, you know, the Renaissance era. I liked all the movies except for The Lion King. Like, my favorite movie is Aladdin. So
that's a good one too.
Aladdin and Beauty and the Beast, my two favorites.
Those are perfect films, for sure.
You just never liked the animal.
I think that's what it is. I don't like animal
talking animals.
Based
you really hate the Fox and the Hound, huh?
I don't even really remember that.
He watches Home on the Range on repeat.
I've never seen it.
Oh, that's the worst. I saw it in the theater, and
so did Jordan. We all saw. Yeah, we all did. Too. It was.
We knew it was going to be bad going into it, but
yes, but I don't think I realized how bad it would be. I only saw it that one time too, so maybe I should rewatch it.
The music's kind of cool nowadays. Just listening back.
Well, Alan Menken, but you know, if that new fireworks show really does have every single Disney movie, maybe there's a Home on the Range section.
There must be.
That would be pretty cool, actually.
And it was what is this?
I've never heard this before.
Well, Treasure Planet, right, Sam?
Yeah,
I know Treasure Planet. I'm stoked for that.
Why?
I don't like the movie Treasure Planet, but that scene kills me.
Terrible.
I can't get through it.
I finally
just watch that scene on YouTube and you're good.
I finally watched that once it came out on once Disney Plus came out. I was like, okay, I'm gonna watch this. I'm gonna watch it, and I was like, this is awful.
Steven's gonna be very upset with you. He loved that movie.
Oh
Who?
no,
Steven, my husband. Yeah, you've met him
once or twice.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, going back to the ice float that's been around forever, and Christmas Fantasy, the ice ring. Yeah, I mean that was it didn't start with Christmas Fantasy Parade. It was in Very Merry, I think, right?
It was. It might have been created for Very Merry, but it was neat because Mickey and Minnie ice skated on the float, and that was kind of like the big wow factor.
Mm-hmm.
And then when it came to Christmas Fantasy, I think they had Chip and Dale on it because Mickey and Minnie were, Bob Cratchit in the back of the parade, so they didn't have Mickey and Minnie on that, which is like fair excuse. At least we get Mickey's Christmas Carol in the back. But for they had Chip and Dale, which was cute, and they had dialogue, and they would throw snowballs back and forth. And then that's when the Beauty and the Beast Christmas special came out.
1998.
And so
Beauty and the Beast,
to promote that, they actually had Beast ice skate and Belle ice skate. And oh my gosh, my only memory of that is, and it might have been 1 or 2 years where they had Beauty and the Beast on there, and it was cute. She had like the something there kind of sweater on, and it looked appropriate. It was really cool. But one of the days she actually slipped, and pretty much I think she broke her arm or fractured something en route.
Oh my gosh!
And she's mic'd.
Oh, no.
And she held it together and like stopped skating, but stood up and just stood there with Beast the whole way. Finished the parade, and when she came backstage, she totally lost her mind. She was like, she kept it together though. Pretty amazing.
Wow, that is impressive.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm like, okay, I know the show must go on again, but just like maybe at that point she could have got off and walked in between or backstage.
Ripped your mic off.
That's horrible. Yeah.
Turn off the mic.
I'm done.
Well, something like that happened with there's a snowflake in Mickey's Nutcracker, the Videopolis show, where there was a problem and there was a character on mic and they had to collect videotape from people to make sure that didn't get out. It was very infamous. That's a whole other story. But so then they eventually, I think they brought Chip and Dale back, and then they're like, why don't we just put Mickey and Minnie back on the ice rink? And they actually put them in the old Very Merry costumes, which were iconic. It was like blue with like these diamond sparkles. So very Tokyo Disneyland style. So then they came back for that. But it's a real shell of its former self right now because they have Anna and Elsa on it right now. And that whole unit needs a lot of help.
They don't skate or anything, do they? They just
No, they're just standing there.
and
It's this really bad animatronic of Olaf just yapping the whole way. I'm like, this is the worst part of the parade right now. Like, this whole unit needs a fixing.
And crazy enough, I was looking up when these all happened. I'm like, that's been around now for 9 years that they've been up on that since 2013.
Well, they get to use that float during the cavalcades, right? They were using those as like just on and Elsa, so they get a lot of use out of that. But as far as the Christmas parade goes, I think that unit could use some help and something new
for sure. And then you were mentioning about Roger Rabbit. You know, he lasted in this parade until 1997. I think where he was at was later replaced by Woody.
Right. Then they had Woody and Buzz up in the front. And then they changed the dialogue. They changed some of the art on the blocks to be Toy Story characters because they realized like turns out it's a big movie.
People like this one.
In the Toy Story in the next 3 decades. But
with Frozen, like, oh, this was really big. We need to
well, that's one thing. Like, kind of stepping back and getting an overview of the parade. I think it's nice because each one is a real defined unit, and you have like the toy soldiers, and you have some Mrs. Claus in the mail room. It's really cute. So you have some elves. I think there's like a really good flow to it where there's like, okay, now then here's the snowmen, which are iconic. But first of all, the toy soldiers, which are the most iconic thing ever. I think Extensio designed those too. That's why they have like that X. I don't know if it's urban legend, but the X on their chest.
We'll go
with
it.
But those go
sure.
way back from like from Babes in Toyland, right? So that's like iconic Walt level Disneyland and stuff.
I think I read that the original ones in the parade were the actual costumes from the film used, and they're like, this didn't work.
Actually happened. That happened more often than not. Even all right, I'm gonna just derail this right now. And not only did some costumes from movies get into the parade, but sometimes the actors in the movies got into the parade. Do you know which one I'm talking about?
No.
What?
Not familiar.
So Peach Dragon came out in, I think, 1977, and when Electrical Parade came back, the actor was not getting any gigs. He went and auditioned to be in the parade, and he's like, I was actually Pete in the movie. So they let him do it. So there was a summer where the kid up there was actually the actor.
That's crazy. Well, you cannot get
not only
authentic than that.
but people. Yeah, I'm sure like people are like, wow, that kid looks just like that.
It's really believable. And does it well with the casting.
So I derailed it, but I think that was a worthwhile
That's fine. We go on tangents all the time.
I was going to say, I don't remember Helen Reddy being in a parade.
Mickey Rooney.
One of my favorite units, if you will, was the genie float, right? The vehicle, if you will. That was added later in just the year after it debuted. It was added in 1996. I loved that float, and it definitely came with some incidents. And I know all about that. Yeah, and there was one even while I was working at Disneyland where in the break rooms behind Storybook, there's a TV right there, and it was very bizarre because there was an incident that happened with it, and there was the helicopter.
In Small World Mall.
Yep. And
I was parade too that night. I was in charge of the drivers that night.
I was there that night. Yeah.
We'll tell that story after hours. But yeah, so I was driving floats like I mentioned earlier, but I was very good friends with the genie for probably like 6 or 7 years. Oh. And it was the most fun I've ever had in my entire life is doing that role. And I look back and I'm like, I'm glad no one got hurt. Like, cause it was wild, right? You look at it now, like you wouldn't be able to do it. Someone would run in. Someone would get hurt. Someone would run into the crowd. That's what would hurt someone. I had faith in all the drivers and myself that we wouldn't crash into anything. Cause there was great vision, and that thing track really well. But yeah, it's the guests that sometimes run out to the crowd and they could get hurt, and that's what happened that night.
Yeah, and if you just look at it's kind of similarly like the electrical parade floats, the snail and so I mean they're kind of similar where they can get pretty close to the guest and they move pretty quickly and they maneuver obviously they have great maneuverability. Excuse me, but the genie was the same way, and I thought
it was actually it was an electric cart that was all souped up, pretty cool, and like the steering wheel, it would turn, but you could actually give it another turn, and it's like it would just the back wouldn't even move and it would turn. It's just so much fun. I do really miss that. And what's cool about the genie is he was infamous for throwing snow on people. There's a big pot that we fill up, and we actually got to throw snow on the guests, and like people would ask for it, and it was so cool to get the crowd going and stuff. And it wasn't just the genie that got to throw stuff. The candy bakers actually had silly string and these big bags of flour. There'd be like these clouds of white smoke, but it was just flour, like the powder.
You don't do any of that now,
everywhere.
Huh? No more flour?
All cut. Yeah, and the silly string looked like cake frosting, and it was really silly. It was really like Three Stooges type of routine and stuff. I'll tell this one story about the genie. There was like this one time where the genie was going down route. I don't know if kids listen to the show, but genie was going down route, and there was this really old lady that was watching the parade, and she looked old, and I'm like, I usually throw a handful, but I did just like a teeny bit of just a little snow on there, and then the family's like more. So I'm like, all right, family asked for it, so I threw a bunch of snow and I left, and this old lady was like laughing. So this is a quick little memory that was great. Well, a month later, I guess the family wrote City Hall and said that the lady passed. And I was like I'm like choking up. But that was like one of her like last memories, which is like, wow, that stuff really makes a difference, right?
Yeah.
So it's pretty neat to like, something you think you're having fun, you're doing this kind of stuff, but then like something little like that, that's a family's last memory and it's joy, right?
Yeah.
So really cool things. That's why I like the parades. That's like little things like that. People like to rush to like this ride or that ride and whatnot, or Genie Plus, Lightning Lane. It's like, no, little things like that are really cool.
It's the in between.
It's the interactions that you have with cast members and vice versa. That those are the things that really stick with you at the end more than I rode on Space Mountain. It's those actual interactions with people that really stick with you. And that's honestly, that's what makes Disney so great, is because the cast members, I feel like they know that and they go above and beyond to provide
little things.
that.
And I think they have that radar where they could sense that kind of stuff way better than a parade performer might happen to notice going down the route. But that's why the performers really try to like target people. They try to look for that and get those pictures or get those memories. It's pretty cool. And the fact that the family cared enough to write City Hall and go, hey, we don't know who that was, but thank you. And it did. It got to the performer. It got to it. I'm like, wow. And it's what the weirdest part is. I'm like, I remember that lady. This is so cool. Very, very cool.
Yeah.
And now I'm starting to see things, of course, through the eyes of my kids. And I knew this would happen because I wasn't a huge parade person when I was, in my early 20s.
Most people aren't, I feel.
Anything. Yeah. But of course, and it started like some of these newer ones I've really enjoyed. I mean, I absolutely adore Paint the Night. We all, I think, feel the same way about that. Hopefully we'll see it someday.
It needs to come back.
Yeah.
So good.
And now seeing things through the kids, and just even Christmas Fantasy last year when my kids were they weren't even one yet. And we watched it last year, but like I've got Mickey and Minnie right now for my, they're twins. So it's Garrett. He just loves Mickey and Minnie so much. And now when he sees them on anything we watch, he gets up, he jumps up, he smiles, he starts clapping. But he even lit up back then. When they came down and he saw them for the first time, he got really excited. So, just seeing those little things, you really understand how much of an impression those parades can have on your kids and on the family.
Who knew that 3 circles drawn that way could carry so much weight and emotion. It reminds me of like the first time I was lucky enough to fly to Tokyo. I stayed out there. I went twice. I stayed there for like 3 weeks one time and then 2 weeks another time. But like, I've never felt so far away from home in my entire life. Like, I'm like, holy crap. I was, for the first part of that trip, I was by myself and I'm like, I'm in Tokyo, the longest flight. Oh my God, it was awful. And then I got there and I'm like, I've never felt so far from home. Like, no one's speaking my language. I'm like, what do I do?
Yeah.
But I'm like, well, I'm going straight to Disneyland. And it was weird. I saw Mickey and I'm like, oh my God, I know him. Finally, someone I know here. And I'm like, it's just this costume. But I'm like, I felt so at home after flying across the world. It's just crazy. Like, it just trips you out.
That's a great point, especially in Japan, where it totally feels like a different world there, and really no one is speaking English. I've talked about it's a lie. People say they all learn English. I'm like, no one was speaking English with me when I went. So you need to find some of that comfort or that home.
I noticed that a lot of Japanese people, when they saw me, they would try to practice their English on me, which I thought was really cool. And I was trying to learn some Japanese from them. And another tangent, I was at the Pirates of the Caribbean store at Tokyo Disneyland, and it was the first time I saw Mickey in a plush as Jack Sparrow. And I'm like, oh my gosh, we don't have this at home. This is so cool. This is probably 05, 06. And I'm like, I need this. And I'm like looking at this stuffed animal, Mickey. And then the cast member was like looking at me and starts talking to me in Japanese. And I'm like, Jack Sparrow. And they're like, oh, Jack Sparrow. Yes, yeah. They're like stoked about it and stuff. And it was like this moment we had. It was great. Well, after I was leaving, I was so sad to leave Japan, and I was at the airport waiting for my flight, and I saw these Japanese girls that were they were going to be on my flight too, and they came up and they were talking to me. They were talking to me, and I didn't know what they were saying, and then they said, Jack Sparrow, like Mickey, and I'm like, it's the cast members. They were flying to Disneyland.
Yeah,
they were.
No way.
What are the odds? They were flying to Disneyland for their first trip. And it was during the 50th. So I remember I told them, like, oh, I worked there. They're like, kidding me? So my friends, we all met up with them and like we watched fireworks with them, and they watched the Remember fireworks, the 50th ones. They were bawling. It was so cool.
Well, those are some of the best fireworks.
Yes.
For sure. It was just so neat. And I'm like, wow, it's just this fandom, it gets made fun of a lot, but it's really special. It's really cool because of things like that, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Like, what are the odds? It was crazy. Anyway, Christmas fantasy tangents.
Well, just going back to that, and you talking about Genie. I think I remember that's probably how I was first introduced to you, Sam. I think we kind of all have had an affinity to you ever since like the Laughing Place days. I don't know.
Oh my gosh.
Posting on the boards there, but I remember you posting up on there and talking about you being.
I think my name was in that.
Yeah,
I think it was Speedy Genie. If I think about it right, I think it might have been Speedy Genie.
Whoa, back up! Hold on, I didn't know Sam was on Laughing Place.
I think I did before Laughing Place. I think it was ADD. It's old. Mm-hmm. I'm 45.
Well, Sam, you were on there as Carter Sauce, right?
Oh well, yeah. That's my name.
Yeah. So that's how I was first introduced to you. I mean, because we're all posting on Laughing Place too. Well, I don't know, Matt, if you were, but
Matt wasn't.
I know Joel and Beth and I were.
Yeah, that's how we all met.
Before Diz Twitter. That was
one of the OG. So shout out to Laughing Place, and so that's how I kind of still have originally.
Thanks, Rebecca and Doobie.
Yeah, exactly. So random connection.
Well, before that, there was Disney.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh, that's
way back.
I discovered that because it was during Light Magic, and oh my God, hearing the stuff that they were typing, and we were working on that show. It was like we're working our butts off here. Like, take it easy. The show's like 60% done. It should be canceled. Like we were very frustrated, but I made a lot of overtime that summer. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's a good story too. I mean, it's definitely some infamous history for Disneyland.
Yes.
Well, I think we could totally talk about Christmas Fantasy Parade forever. And there's so many nuances and changes that have happened over time. And really, just looking back to like the video that you have online of the inaugural year, and it's like it's still the essence is still there. It's still
same song,
It's the same song. You can't get enough of the song, and I think it's just important to understand, like, hey, over these 27 years, I think that's what it is. It really has lived on, and so many generations have been impacted by it and love it. And I think it's just cool to see something that's lasted this long and still cherished. It's
been running so long that they can't just cancel it now. They'd have to have a farewell season. No pun intended to the electrical parade, but they'd have to make a big deal about it going away, because it's literally been running as long as electrical parade was running when they first said goodbye to it. Like, it is and I feel when parades run that long, it's more than a parade. It's an attraction at this point. It's tradition.
It becomes a tradition that you go see,
and you need to say goodbye to it.
Yeah,
and not just the guests to the parade, but the performers, I feel like, need to say goodbye to it. The float drivers need to say goodbye to it. And that's what was like really crushing when the pandemic happened. And we're just going to shut the parks down for 2 weeks. See you later, Frozen cast. See you later, Magic Happens. See you later. Every piece of entertainment, hundreds of people never got to say goodbye. That sucks to think about that, right? Luckily, Magic Happens is coming back, but brand new cast, brand new float drivers, brand new, just same old floats. It's just that's a bummer that when casts can't say goodbye. I think that really stings.
I didn't even think about that. Like the Frozen cast, they didn't get to say goodbye or have a last performance. Nope. It was like
they didn't even know that was their last show.
Yeah.
And say what you will about the Frozen show. The show itself was great. I think
I really enjoyed it.
You have this Broadway theater. You have this Broadway theater that's an e-ticket of DCA that's abandoned. No one's talking about it. That's an e-ticket for that park. That it's part of the value of that ticket that just empty
still haven't done anything with it. I know.
I mean, I'm hoping. I would hope for an Encanto show. We could do speculation, but I think I'll take a Moana show. I'll take anything.
I'll take any show.
Encanto would be perfect. I mean, they did it at the bowl already, so come on.
Yeah, bring the same thing. I want to mention too, before I forget too, about the music for Christmas. I know that they always say that, it's that same song. If you've noticed, it's the same melody in each unit. Like, say it's like a 3-minute loop. Half of that 3 minutes is the traditional like song that you all know, but it's a different arrangement where it is a Toy Factory sounding, or it's the Winter Wonderland sounding, or it's a Regal Christmas Ball sounding. I love that there's those little differences. So where they sing the main theme, but then it'll go into something like Sleigh Ride or Winter Wonderland, like, depending on what. I love that. I think it's really clever. And if you listen closely to it, you know that it's not the same song repeated. It's just the same melody, but each one's definitely different. And maybe that's just because I've listened to it for like 27 years. But I hope people notice that when they say, that song's tired of it.
It's kind of good that you're not noticing it, because I think it is so fluid in how they do the arrangements and going between from float to float. It flows.
Yeah.
And we've seen that with like Parade of Dreams and other ones where it had different music that was dedicated for each unit, and it could flow really together. Some flowed better than others, but Christmas Fantasy Parade, you really occasionally you'll be like, oh wait, that's a different song, and then it kind of catches you. But I bet a lot of guests don't realize that, but not for the bad. Not for
that's
bad.
True. It's subtle. Well, I think that wraps it up pretty good. I mean, we all love it, but it's a good show. I hope it hangs out. I don't want it to go away. I think people are like, I need a new Christmas parade. And I'm like, you know what? At this point, give us a new Christmas parade in California Adventure. Do something super fun. And whether it's something 30s, something 40s, have a lot of fun with it in California Adventure. And I think Christmas Fantasy could stay. I mean, it's earned it. I think it's an attraction at the point.
And you can just have refresh some of the floats, bring in some new units. But
some of those units do need it. Like we talked about the Winter Wonderland unit. I think that could definitely use it. Some of the floats get redone, but some are still original, like the opening float, that's been there. And if you saw us talking earlier, that you could recognize that float in the World According to Goofy Parade with Professor Ludwig von Drake writing it. It's kind of cool to see how they've retailored it, but that's an original float. The cottage float is an original float. But then floats like the Toy Factory and the new Santa float, are like brand new ones with this new style. It's a good look. I like where it's going. The toy blocks have been replaced.
Yeah.
It's ironic. You know, the group kind of knows how I feel about some other parades that keep coming back. And I'm not the biggest fan of like Main Street Electrical Parade, but it's weird because like the Christmas Fantasy Parade, like I don't have a problem with it. Like every year it comes back, like I just enjoy seeing it. It just feels like Christmas to me. So I don't know. It could stay around as long as it needs to.
It never glowed away though.
That's true. I think if maybe they pegged it that way, then maybe I feel differently. But yeah, I love the parade. It's great. It does feel like Christmas. It's tradition, you know?
Definitely.
And I have to thank you for your videos because I was looking and I could see that you had the 2022 video. It's beautifully done. And since I'm in Vegas right now, I did not get a chance to see it this year. So tomorrow, my daughter and I are going to watch it, get some hot cocoa, and we're going to watch the whole parade. So I appreciate you taking the time to put that stuff up because
my pleasure.
People do enjoy it. Me.
I hope so. Well, that's kind of why when I'm on Twitter a lot and I take the pictures that I do, or I think, post the things that I post, it's like, I think there's a lot of people that wish they could be there. So I do feel I'm lucky that we get to go to the parks as much as we do.
Absolutely. And and this is good. Where can we find you, Sam? Like, for instance, your YouTube.
I am all over.
Don't tell us your home address.
Laughing place.
Yeah. I wish I was in Vegas, but I'm not. You can find me on Twitter at Cartarsauce. It's an old softball nickname from playing on Disney League that I had that I never thought it would stick, and I can't believe I'm still using it. But that's how you can find me on Twitter and Instagram. And then samcarterart.com is my website where I do my themed entertainment, art and design, and I have also my gallery art there as well. So thank you to everyone that bought prints for Christmas and Canvas. It was really cool. I had a fun time printing a bunch of stuff out to send out for Christmas presents all over the country. I actually had my first Christmas Aloha shirt this year, which was fun to send out to everybody.
That looked amazing.
But it was fun. I got to think of next year's already, but yeah, it's cool. I'm glad people enjoy what I do, and I've learned that life's too short to not do what you love. So I'm lucky that I'm able to pick the gigs that I want to pick, that I want to do, paint what I want to paint, do what I want to do, and draw what I want to draw. I like that I'm able to be a little bit selective. It took a long time to get there, to do that kind of work, but it's nice to be trusted when it comes to that kind of stuff. And I think, you just figure out what you're passionate about, and then try to find a way to build a career on that. It's kind of like advice. Unsolicited advice. Try to do that.
Well said. Well, hey, we can't thank you enough for being on here. We really appreciate your time, and hopefully you'd like to come back. You're always welcome. Because we
anytime.
Let's have a DCA / Eureka Parade episode.
Oh, I'm
really
all
want
right.
that.
Because you were talking about people that didn't get to say goodbye. I didn't get to say goodbye to Eureka.
Can I do another tangent?
Yeah, please.
Yeah.
2003, we were rehearsing for the third season of Eureka, but this season was going to be different because they're like, you know what? Let's put characters in it. Let's just see what happens. And that's kind of what was cool about it, is it didn't have characters.
Right.
But you kind of knew that, okay, I could picture Mushu in the Asian unit.
Mm-hmm.
I could picture the three Caballeros in the Fiesta unit. And they were going to have Mickey doing the hip hop stuff in the LA unit. And Stitch was going to be on the half pipe on the surf unit. The whole thing was there. And they had a costume for Minnie. She was one of the finale fire dancers in the back.
Oh, wow.
Actually, yeah, if you remember those dresses, it's like flames and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
They're divas in a good way. It was awesome. And I think maybe Mickey was going to be in the opening unit and Goofy was in the LA one. Anyway, they were just getting ready to start rehearsals. And they said, you know what? Canceled. We're doing X Games this summer. And I'm like, wait, what? We were finally going to make this amazing parade even better. And then they're like, yeah, the money's going to X Games instead to promote that going on.
Oh, man.
I think they just bought ESPN.
We need to go put dirt in a parking lot.
They did. Yeah.
We have fond memories of that, even though, we get what it was, but we had fond memories of 2003 X Games experience.
So instead of driving the floats in Eureka, I think I was parade lead then, but I was driving the Duffy boat in the Paradise Bay because the talent going to the half pipe got on at the the restaurant, and we took them to the half pipe. So every day that summer, I was in a boat driving around the bay. It was so cool. I have some fun pictures.
That's awesome.
Wow. And what's funny about that is when they drained the lagoon, they actually found like a ton of skateboards down there. Those are Mexican. Because the half pipe was right there.
Yeah. How funny.
That's so funny.
Wow.
Well, there you go, guys. Coming on a future episode, maybe in 8 months from now, we'll finally get to DCA and Eureka. That's awesome.
I should mention too, I'm also on a podcast called Nostalgia Fast Pass. Kristen and Josh would be really mad at me if I didn't mention it. But we just recorded our 81st episode, which is insane to me. We do one every week. It usually comes out on Fridays. But yeah, check that out. Nostalgia Fast Pass.
And this, I will support that as well, because I started listening to it and I really enjoy it, because I don't always catch all the news thing. Like, yeah, I catch a lot of the big theme park items, but I don't follow as much as I would like, I guess, of all the food items and like Disney Plus, what's new on Disney Plus. You guys really cover it all, like really all of Disney. And I really enjoy that, for me to get my not just my fix, but to get my news.
That's awesome.
It's a good one-stop shop.
I learned stuff too, because I'm not as much into the food or the spirit jerseys as they are, but like we talk about what we're passionate about. Like Josh and Kristen are brother and sister, but Josh is really deep into Marvel and Star Wars. Like I thought I was a Star Wars nerd. Josh is like very deep about those. And then he's super into the spirit jerseys as well. So I'm like, I'm learning all this stuff. And it's nice.
Run of the mill spirit
yeah,
jerseys.
exactly. People comment run of the mill. It's an inside joke now. Like they'll comment on my Instagram. I'm like, how do you know that? But I'm like, oh, people listen to this, I guess. But like, but then like there will be stories and I'm like, what do I want to talk about? And I get to just talk about what I want to talk about. And it's, we stick to the stuff that's been announced. Mm-hmm. Stuff that, that's topical. We try not to do the speculation, but we're all really passionate about it. And I think that's how it's a good group. 81 shows. It's crazy.
That's awesome. Congrats.
Well, congrats on that. Yeah.
Thank you.
So I think we'll go ahead and wrap it up here. All right, well, everybody, until our next happy hour, when you aren't able to join us off Harbor in Maine, you can always find us on Twitter and Instagram. It's simply at Off Harbor. We post most our things on our personal handles, though, and that's available under the show notes. And if you've enjoyed us, hey, sharing and recommending the show with your friends is truly the best way to get the word out. And just as a reminder, Spotify has ratings now, too. So if you're on Spotify, we'd love for you to give us a rating. But regardless, we just really thank you for listening. And remember, it's a special magic at Christmas time this year. Hearts are gay and merry and full of Yuletide cheer. The spirit of the season will make our dreams come true.
On behalf of the birdies, flowers, and tikis here at Off Harbor in Maine,
farewell and aloha to you.
We'll see you all next time.
Stay well, and cheers.
cheers.
We'll go into the Christmas fantasy parade. Interlude.
Dun, 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 dun,
Please
dun,
just leave it at that.
that was interlude. Yeah. I have nothing more for Christmas fantasy. Hearts are gay and merry and full of Yuletide cheer. The spirit of the season will make your shit.